Mm-hmm.
No, got it. What stood out to me was when you were talking about the meaningful circumstances, and I wrote a couple of notes here. I had to put names by it so I remember who was what. But hold on. But that was the main thing that had stood out for me. I actually watched it and did the free writing section too with you guys, in that way. But you said, how do I make writing, like, how do I make it fun? And how do I create a process that is enjoyable and interesting? So that conversation was really interesting to me, because it sounded like the focus was more on like what's making me come alive now. And it made me think of several weeks ago, that whole idea of being able to focus on the process and enjoying the process rather than just thinking of what that end goal is. And then the other thing was just making each moment meaningful. Dana, you said that. I put it on here about like, you were saying, how do I make each moment meaningful? And then Sean said something along the lines like, we all have something to teach and to be taught. And so that's what stood out to me. Oh, the other thing is the question that you guys asked, what if I made my happiness easy? That was really impactful. That made me think about how hard I make things on me. And actually, that's what got me reading the Keep Going Finally, by the way. And that's what led to a really good weekend for me, because I wrote down in here that one, almost everything will work again if you unplug it for a few minutes, including you.
Yeah.
So on Sunday, sorry, let me just quickly get this out of the way.
You're good. Keep going. This is really helpful.
Okay. On Sunday, so this holiday, I don't celebrate Thanksgiving, but I do appreciate the time off and I make the most of it being with my family. But what I typically end up doing is working. I'm like, oh, now I have time to catch up. And I committed myself to not doing that this time. I committed myself to truly unplugging. And that included, and I felt a tiny little bit of guilt, but I got over it. But that included Sunday, I double booked myself for two things. And one of those things was giving water to the homeless in Skid Row. But the thing that I had first made a commitment to was supporting my group, the Color the Water, where we are promoting diversity in surf and showing up and getting in the water and cheering each other on and inviting people to come and surf and really like celebrating the joy that was denied for so long, right? Like historically. And I chose that over the going and volunteering at Skid Row. And I felt guilt at first. And then after I was present, I got to the beach and I was present that whole time. I felt like I was feeding myself what I needed to keep going. And so the guilt like disappeared. It totally disappeared. And it actually turned in to another story idea that I had to take out my recorder and start recording it because of my hand. And then it turned into an opportunity to take more photos for, another project that I'm working on with another class that I'm taking. It just turned into something really, really meaningful. And so it kind of like, I'm glad that even though I wasn't here the day, with you guys, I'm glad that I watched your recording, that I took notes, and that I read that Anne Lamott when I read it, because I'm not so sure I would have made the decisions that I made this past weekend. That's it.
That hit me. Yeah, one of my family friends, one of my dad's best friends, passed away. I just heard a few hours ago.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
It's okay. It's a miracle that he had survived as long as he had. He was having a hard time breathing for a while, and he was ready to go. but something about what you were saying, and it's just really fresh on my on my heart, as it were. Um, I think it's just really important to take care of ourselves and really cherish that, make every moment count. I was watching a surfing documentary, and this woman tried to surf a really big wave, got completely, like, she got held down. It was terrible, and she's like, I'm at totally post traumatic stress. I will only go on even on small waves. I'm like, she's like, I just really like to breathe, and I never want to be in a situation where I can't breathe if I don't want to. And it's crazy. Everyone takes breath for granted, but I don't anymore. And Roger, my friend, he, like, this last month, like, talked to him 4 weeks ago or so, and he like just could had a hard he really had a hard time breathing, and he was like, this guy was so far out. He's like super hippie, like almost off the grid, and moved to the middle of nowhere in Kansas, grows own food, wood shop, grew marijuana in the woods, and like just totally hippie, beautiful, kind man who lost his wife 10 years ago, and I don't know how he possibly survived without her for even like 2 years, but he's like, he was saying like he would like nearly die like 4 times a day, and then he was like, his will to breathe. So it's like, yeah, it's just crazy to me that he survived as long as he did, and that. So thanks for letting me share that. But it just reminds me that you said, Ame, that that when you feed ourselves.
Yeah, thanks for sharing it with us.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, it looks like my connection is unstable. I finished reading, so hopefully I'm back now. I finished reading Natalie Goldberg's Wild Mind this week.
Mm-hmm.
And she says to be lazy and to lay around for a full day. And that when you're done with that, you'll produce great writing. So it just reminded me that, like, we just go. And I've been thinking about, like, pace of things, and to just really slow down and give ourselves the time to really just appreciate the small things, how significant that is. So yeah.
So last year, I don't know, I think a lot of you guys are in Fort Collins or the area, but like was it February? We had that huge snowstorm. There was like 2 feet that came.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was supposed to go skiing, and my buddy was like, yeah, you can stay at my house. And so we went skiing on Saturday, and the snow didn't come till, I don't know, Sunday sometime. We were supposed to go Sunday. And I was very irritated because, I don't know, everybody wanted to sleep in. I was ready to go skiing. The snow is just coming down, and I'm pissed that I'm like the only one up at not my house ready to drive, and it's not my car. Like, anyway, so we get up and they're like, nah, we're just not gonna go. And anyway, long story short, I end up getting snowed in at the house. I can't make it back to Fort Collins because I'm in Denver. And I was so irritated because I was like, now I can't go anywhere. I'm stuck at a house that's not my house doing stuff I don't want to do. And we ended up watching, like, I don't know, weird documentaries on Netflix, and like eating blueberry ice cream, and like, I don't know. And it is one of the most enjoyable memories. And I think about that. And my buddy was like, when was the last time that you ever spent the day just sitting on the couch? And I was like, I couldn't tell you, like, maybe if I was really sick, but I couldn't tell you the last time I just laid around and I had to surrender to everything around me. And that has repeatedly come back to me as like one of my favorite days in the last year, because I was doing nothing, and I felt completely recharged. But I think it was because I was not in control, and I couldn't, I couldn't be around my house doing my dishes or like doing anything like that. So I think that there is something to be said about surrendering and being lazy and letting yourself go. And I don't know, it's very healing.
Do you feel like by being there, all the distractions were gone?
Yep, exactly. Like if I would have been snowed into my own house, I would have been like, well, I'm gonna reorganize my refrigerator, or I'm gonna like do laundry, or I don't know, I'm gonna do a billion other things, or you know, but being out of my element, not in my house, out of control of my schedule, allowed the space for me to be truly lazy.
I really relate to that. I feel like I'm always doing stuff, and I like carve out little like 10-minute or 15-minute windows where I'm like a little bit lazy, and then I'm like, oh, back to doing things, time to do some more stuff. And I haven't had a day of nothing in a long time.
Yeah,
It's nice.
powerful.
It's nice.
I think I feel like walking is the thing that I do for myself. That is just, I give myself in the day where it's like, okay, I'm gonna take a walk. And I might have a phone call. I might not. I might listen to a podcast. But I think having those little, and it's interesting because I don't think those are the word distraction really came up to me, that I think so much of our free time that we would otherwise just check out, we just like fill up with all this stuff. Because it's so like, I wonder what's going on TikTok right now. Oh, I wonder how my whatever.
Yeah.
Which does connect to kind of where I'm hoping that we go this week. Are there other reflections on last week? Experiences, or thanks for kind of kicking us off. Ame, your story is fantastic.
Yeah. Thanks.
Did you get to write it at all, Dana?
Yes and no. So I did not write, but I did some mind mapping from the Designing Your Life deal, where they talk about, you do this good time journaling where you look at what goes well during your week and what drains you. And then the idea of like building these bubbles around the things that build you up, and just kind of free word associations. So I did a little bit of that, and I'm pretty excited about kind of things that are coming out of it. And then I did a little bit of drawing. So I'm trying to force myself to be more creative. And I have this real mental block about drawing because I'm so terrible at it. But I was proud of myself that I drew a lettuce leaf with legs, and it was like running to better soil. And it's just this terrible, like 4-year-old sketch of lettuce with these giant legs in tennis shoes. So I was like, all right, there we go.
That sounds amazing. I love that.
It's so bad. But I was like, oh, that's my inspiration for my like little sketch this week.
I really like that.
I like that a lot.
So it is, in a certain regard, you're not like, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad.
Yeah.
Like there's no, it doesn't like, there's no even, we wouldn't even want to apply good or bad to the lettuce. And honestly, from the way you describe it, I'm going to go good. Like the lettuce with legs and shoes, that's better than good.
Yeah, I think that this is I don't know if you guys ever have where you kind of hit your own personal nerve, where you kind of dance around something and it's okay, and then you dance around something else and it's like that. I want to put that off because it's hitting a nerve. And I think for me, drawing really hits the nerve of personal judgment, and when we free write, we talk about don't judge your words. And I feel like I can do that really easily, and I can put down whatever and I don't judge it. But as soon as I start drawing something, I am a terrible, terrible critic, and I'm very mean to myself. And I don't know why drawing somehow is different than writing. But I think it's just an exercise in not being judgmental.
Yep. But I understand your sentiment about that distinction between the two. I totally understand. Like I haven't drawn, like really sat down and committed myself to doing something where I used to do it all the time. So I am afraid to even do it now and judge myself so harshly. I know what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about.
I think we should like remind ourselves that like things like that do take practice though, and that the reason that like you were comfortable drawing before is because you spent the time. So like if you, for me personally, like I have felt the same way, just like been like in like a weird art dump, like where I don't feel very creative about things. Um, but even just like taking 5 minutes then, you know, and like looking at someone else's art like has been inspiring me. I found this lady that does like all these cool little like vegetable stamps and things like that. And like, I don't know, it's kind of, it's really hard, but also like you have to realize that, oh, like the reason I was so good before is because I actually spent the time on a daily basis doing that.
That's true. That's true. You're absolutely right. Which is, that's true. Because yeah, it was literally every single day. I mean, I went to school for fashion design and apparel manufacturing. I did really well in fashion illustration. I was doing it all the time. I had to do it and I had to get graded for it. But I'm talking about even before then, as a kid, when I would draw. I had a good time drawing. There was like joy in it. And something happens and then you reconnect to it and then something happens again. But you're right. I guess to get started again, it would just be like, just do it. One of those moments to do it.
Yeah, it's like literally going back to when you're a kid and being like, okay, this is how I felt when I drew for the first time. And it's like when we're kids, we don't really think about the fact that like someone thinks that our work is bad, you know? It's like, no, we're drawing because we enjoy it. And I think that, yeah, getting back to the root of that. I've been reading a lot of Natalie Goldberg recently as well. And that's what she, I think, likes to push upon people is that you need to practice. So.
Mm-hmm.
It's so interesting. And then so we learn to see whether or not like we learn to judge our work. Or I get this with singing a lot too. I hear people be like, "Oh, I'm a terrible singer." I'm like, "Do you try to do it professionally?" And they're like, "No, I like singing, but I'm terrible at it." And I'm like, "Who gives a shit? Like, is somebody judging you? Like, I put out a record and I care whether or not I sound good, which is a terrible thing to do. Are you trying to record music? Oh no, I'm terrible." I'm like, "Well, but I love it." Who the fuck cares? Like, really? Like, if you love doing it, sing in the shower, sing loud. And it reminds me, like, some of my favorite people, like, sing terribly loudly. Like, they don't care. They're just like, this is great. Because I love it. It's like, wow, I feel like that's such a key part of creativity, that you're really just allowing yourself to enjoy what it is that you're doing and be surprised by it rather than being like, oh, I'm not sure about this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that means that I do know, like with that, I mean, you got to just plug your ears to what other people have to say. Everybody thinks everybody's a critic and everybody thinks they're funny.
That's funny. In my case, both those things are true. No. That's so terrible. So terrible. And then, Natalie Goldberg, or not just Natalie Goldberg, Julia Cameron writes about like the censor, where we have like this inner critical voice that's not supportive.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I have. But I also kind of feel like if I push through this, kind of like what you were talking about, Sean, like what else are you censoring? Like what else am I censoring in my life that I'm afraid of doing? Like let's start with something like drawing lettuce with legs and nobody gives a shit. But then when you start to look at other things like, well, what about my friend group, or what do I do for work, or what kind of clothes do I wear, or I don't know, things that maybe are more socially like have higher stakes.
Yeah.
Where am I censoring myself because I'm afraid of it? And really at the end of the day, none of it matters. So it doesn't matter what job you have or what friends you have or where you live, just as much as it doesn't matter how good you are at drawing lettuce with legs.
I love that so much. It absolutely is. And I mean, I almost want to flip it. So it's not only, I could ask, like, where am I censoring myself where it doesn't matter? Really interesting. But where am I encouraging myself? Where it does matter.
Yeah. Well, that hits hard. There's a prompt.
Yeah, it's a good one. Because it has to do with, like, that support that we're giving ourselves. And I mean, I think the fact that this is like a self-selective group, right? Of people that are interested in taking some concrete steps to live better. Like, just the fact that we're committing to be here for this amount of time. There's something cool about that. Or at least cool because I'm a part of it. No, I mean, cool that it's like, I think it's cool because it gels with what I like, is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But it is like, it's encouraging. I am committing to this kind of growth. And I do think one of the things we're looking at, I mean, building from last week, there's a great chapter that Austin Kleon has, that the ordinary plus extra attention equals the extraordinary. And that it's easy for us to miss, like, we might miss. So, and I'm also been thinking about, like, pointing positive or paying attention to the positive. And it's easy for us to be like, yeah, I have an inner critic that's a real pain in the ass around drawing lettuce with legs. Might be harder to recognize. I also actually have a really nice inner supportive voice that's telling me to do my best and it's going to be okay. Or maybe, does that resonate with people? Do we feel like we're encouraging ourselves in different ways?
I feel that I'm learning to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Because it's high, to me, that in itself is high stakes. I did write a note about something like that. I did. Okay, somebody said, I have so much to learn from both good and bad situations. And then that's when it led into, what if I made my happiness easy? And then I wrote something underneath there that made me think about, like, the motivation for doing something that's actually good for myself, not just, I want to put on a cute little lipstick and look cute for myself. I'm talking about something that actually, when I lost weight, for example, I did that for my health because I did not want diabetes, right? So, but I knew that in order for me to do it, I had to try to start examining, like, how did I get here in the first place? And when I was completely honest with myself, I got there in the first place because I neglected myself. I no longer felt a need to take care of this vessel here and funneled just directed all of my attention to everyone else. And so I wrote on here, like, and it's something I believe, we take care of those things that we love and we care about because it's important to us. And so self-care is self-love.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so I kind of feel like as we're talking about this, it would make sense for me to be much more kind enough to even say that I'm going to go ahead and do something for myself and sit down for 30 minutes and start drawing again. Because I deserve it. Instead of making it, and pay attention to that voice instead of the voice that looks down at what I just drew and was like, bleh, wants to crumble it and throw it away. There was something that, is that in the book? That's in the book, right? That's in the book where it was something about a father, somebody drawing, and for every picture they didn't like, they would pull it out of their notepad and crumple it up and throw it in the trash. And the father tells us, I think it was to his son or something, and says, what, right?
Yeah.
It says,
Austin Kleon, I think.
Yeah. Don't
keep
crumple it up. Just keep it. Yeah. That.
Yeah.
and where he would, he was throwing it away, but he wasn't crumbling up again. And then what? He found that box full of his drawings.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's almost like, I don't know if that was the intention of the father to the son, but it was a lesson taught to care just enough.
Yes. And it reminds
Crumble it up.
the thing we were talking about before with like the extraordinary and the ordinary. Sometimes when you make something or you scribble something down in whatever form it is, you don't realize that there is something magical or special or like unique in there, and you like aren't seeing it the same way, but leave it alone and like come back to it later. Like if you have like maybe even a scrap pile of things you just don't want to look at for a while and revisit them later, I'm like, you could see things that like you didn't see before, and maybe there's a lot of good stuff in there. And I feel like it's good to keep everything, even if you don't like it at the time that you do it.
Absolutely. You know what? Okay, I'm going to share something, one more thing,
Yeah.
because it's kind of cool, and it's one of my story ideas. But I had a dream that I woke up from that dream, and when you first wake up, you only remember just, or at least for me, I don't remember just what might have just happened at that moment, and everything else starts coming back. I was like, oh. But what was happening at that very moment, and this has happened with me before, there was a tooth that felt like it was loosening up. And I remember touching it with my tongue and then touching it with my finger and feeling like it was crumbling,
Mhm.
right? And in the dream, I take these two fingers and I start to rub it like this back here, and it's crumbling like, oh my God, like my tooth is freaking bleh.
Yep.
But I did it anyway, and I kept rubbing it. And as I kept rubbing it, these shards were coming down where they started to look like beautiful, smooth rocks that were like conglomerate rocks with these, little granite things that were shining. And I was just like, oh my God, like as if I just had to keep getting past that part to get to something really beautiful. And then I woke up and I shared that with my sister, and I was like, oh my God, that was really interesting to get a message like that.
Mhm.
Almost like a little love letter from myself to myself, to just keep scratching. Like I'm getting to something.
Yeah,
I really am.
I love that. It's a very positive twist on sometimes what could be a scary dream. Because at first I'm like, that seems like very bad. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait, this is actually good. This is awesome. I'm so glad I kept going. That's actually really great.
Yeah.
I really like that.
I mean, it's so relevant in terms of how we process our experience, right? Be like, oh, this is not working. This is terrible. Oh, this is nothing's. Oh wait, actually, this is kind of working. Maybe this actually isn't so terrible. Maybe these things are like filling in good time. So I want to challenge us. I mean, what I wanted, my idea of what the kind of schedule for the class is changing a little bit, because I'm really compelled with this idea of how we can support ourselves in what we're doing and what that support might look like. And since our support is going to be like the creative support, we already have some really good ideas of rest. But I do want to give us some time to write. And I'm wondering about that idea of support. So I'm also really interested in this idea of making something really shitty and throw it like almost like this intent, like the assignment to just like make a really terrible drawing. Like that's your goal. I'm not saying anything about your drawing.
But like
but you know what I mean? Like, or like really writing a terrible blog post, or just writing something. And this is further on in Austin Kleon's work, but just being okay with just writing something bad and kind of just having, because it gives yourself permission to just have a lot of fun with it.
Yeah.
So I mean, the question kind of is, what can we do? Or maybe let's just actually just exercise writing down something that's really bad and really fun. What might we have a lot of fun either writing right now, or if we want to plan something this next week, what can we do? What can we do? That's not actually, the prompt is like, we're still in the middle of this creativity focus is about making it easy. And we kind of talked about synchronicity and attention, and I still want to kind of stay there on making it easy and more childlike, more fun. To do what helps us come most alive. Is that good enough for a prompt to just at least kick us off, get us going? Either just have fun and write whatever's coming. So we could say what's most alive for us right now? What might be most fun to write about?
Are you saying throw ideas out right now about what to
I'm
write
like,
about?
I'm just like in our pages. So in terms of like, you can either write right now, like instead of planning on what we're gonna do this week, I was gonna say, how can we make the creative process easier for ourselves moving forward? If we're gonna do something small and shitty to be more childlike and have more fun with it, what would that look like? But I mean,
Should we draw or write in a shape?
yeah.
A circle, in a circle.
That would
Let's draw a big circle and fill it in. Or a star.
Yeah, I like it. So honestly, let's just see how much. I mean, the goal here is what could we do to have fun? As I was planning on what the week would be, this is more about looking forward into making our creativity easy with doing little small things. So kind of like playing with what we might do to make it easier. More in like the technique and process rather than just paying attention. So how we might do small little shitty things. But
I'm sorry. Sounds okay. I want to make sure I understand. Is that what we're keeping in mind as we write? Or are we writing about that? I'm sorry. I'm overthinking this right now.
No, you're not, because I'm confusing myself because I was like, instead of writing about what you're going to do this week, just do it right now. Do whatever you would do in 10 minutes. But I don't know that that makes sense either. I think it's not you, Ame. It's me. I'm complicating this way too much. Let's try it. Let's try again. What can we do to create something fun that we don't care about the outcomes and can enjoy the process of making it? So I had the prompt as making something more childlike and fun that will have us come most alive. So what would be fun to do? What would be fun to make? Maybe it's a drawing. And this is kind of like just what do we want to do this? What can we do this next week? Does that give us enough to write on?
I think that does actually. Unless we're doing it right now.
No, yeah, you have time. You have time to play around with the idea. And
Okay.
Annie's suggestion is to make a shape and fill it in with words. That will be fun.
Okay.
Whoops. We're going to go for 13 minutes until 6:50. It's a little longer than 10. A little shorter than 15. I'm sure that math is helpful for you all. 13 minutes. Okay. All right, that's 15 minutes. I hate to interrupt people writing. How was that terrible writing prompt for you all? It seemed like we were all, once we got going, we were off to the races.
At first, I wrote a bunch of stuff that I hated and was getting really frustrated with myself. But then I eventually got to something that I felt like was actually really nice and useful. Basically, I'm not going to straight take you through the garbage, but eventually I got to a place where I was like, I think what would really create that environment for me is things like writing and drawing and the things that like I like to do with my friends and around people that I like to do stuff with, because I feel like during the days that I have like things to do, I like have a lot of things to do. And then when I have like a day off, I always try to see my friends because like that's important to me. But then when I'm with them, I don't want to be like in my journal, like doing my thing also. But it's like one of the few days that I have like the whole day. But I used to go to the bookstore with my friend when we were living in a van together. We used to always go to like a bookstore for a whole day where we would like drink coffee and like read a bunch of free books and write in our journals together. And it was like the most pleasant thing to share with a friend that you like being around anyways. And it was very nice. And I think that would be the ideal environment for some non-judgmental, fun, creative things. Because when I'm alone, I can be a real like dick to myself, obviously. But with my friends, I'm like, oh, I only have like 10 minutes to scribble this thing anyways, because then we're gonna go back and do something else maybe, and then I'll come back to it. And like it's all not serious, or maybe not as serious.
But you still give yourself like the time and the framework to just keep going.
And I'm usually always having fun anyways, so maybe I'll like make something that's also fun.
That is really close to what I wrote, that we build good in community, and that there is like this. It's not really accountability, so it's like the idea of like having an accountability buddy. It's like, or a workout partner that you go to the gym with, and you just go like you do the workout. It's not really like that. It's more like a friend hang, like a creative hang.
Yeah, it's really nice. But I used to do that way more, and it's been a long time since I've like instigated a creative friend hang, and I feel like that is what I need in my life.
I love that insight because I feel like that is, and it's a way of nurturing yourself, focusing on the process, and having a good time doing it.
I think I've done these last few months, I've done like a lot of work on cultivating my like solo routines and habits and the things that I can do by myself. And I think some of those I'm still working them out, but I think a lot of them have gotten to places where they're like serving me really well right now. And so I'm like, I want to look at other areas, see how I can expand like my habits and my like creative routines elsewhere outside of the things I do by myself.
So it's just like times and dates and places, messages. And I think, I mean, ideally, that's connected to what I hope long term, what I hope the kind of wisdom workshop community can be, where it's like you have like a database or like an alumni network where it's like, hey, does anybody want to do like a remote call where we like free write and then just write, or a hang,
right? Like it's very nice.
I'm gonna be thinking about that, because I feel like there's a way to streamline this, that there's some resources here in community, creating in community. Maybe that's what this class should be called. It's really good.
That is good.
I like that. I like wrote about a lot of like friend things in mine as well. And I've actually been inviting a lot of my friends to like go out and volunteer with me recently, because I've been volunteering with all of these organizations, and they like wanted to as well. And I was like, oh my gosh. So we like literally like me and my friend like brought our dogs, went and volunteered, and then went on a hike on the way back from volunteering. And it was like the
Amazing.
best day ever. Yeah, it was super fun. And we like also learned a bunch. And so I really like that. I think like being able to be creative and like just like find new ways that you can like hang out with people and like make it something that's like beneficial for both of you is really cool.
Mm.
And then you also kind of like attract those people around you as well, which is nice. I personally drew an anchor and I wrote around it, and then I wrote a really bad poem in the center of it. There.
Love that. Good.
um, so yeah, I kind of just put dogs breaking in. I kind of just put a lot of random ideas of what I could do. Like when I was at the grocery store a couple days ago, me and my boyfriend eat a lot of ice cream, so I just started buying like the party pails because they're like $5 for like the giant thing, and then I also get this pail to like repurpose and put stuff in, and it's super fun. But whenever I'm buying like a gallon of chocolate ice cream and this party pail, I'm like this little girl just walking through the store. I usually get some looks. So like this group of guys like turned to me and they were just like, and I looked at them and I was like, yes, I'm eating all of this tonight. And then just turned around and walked away. And I was like, things like that, like just like little like ego killing things almost, where I'm just like, those guys, they don't know, but they might think I'm gonna do that. And I think like things like that just like make me laugh at myself, and I need to do that more often. And I also put down like invite friends over and put a bunch of paper on the ground, and we can all paint with our feet together and have like a dance party while also painting. I put that I could make myself a piñata and break it open, my own piñata.
These are all good ideas.
Yeah.
Um,
You should write a book or something.
have a tea party with all my friends where we all dress up in fancy dresses and have a tea party like we're little girls and we all put on our best dresses. Wouldn't that be so fun if we can all talk about like life things? And I'm also really judgmental about like how I cook, so I figured I could make like a really bad dish of food and eat it, and if it's really bad just be like, oh okay, and throw it away, but I don't know. And then my poem was I drew my anchor too big. And that was it.
Ooh, that's actually pretty darn good. I like that.
You like the poem?
Yeah.
Is there something hidden in there that?
Yeah, there is. Because like anchor to me is like it's like anchoring you somewhere.
Hmm.
And the sense that you drew your anchor is like that you're actually kind of creating your anchor. And that you made it too big is really that's the turn of the poem for me.
Says the English teacher.
No, I mean like so good haiku, it makes a leap. Like you feel like there's like some kind of an insight that happens. What I
Mhm.
liked about that poem is it made that insight for me. Like I drew my anchor, but I drew my anchor too big.
Mhm.
It's okay to have an anchor, but just don't make it so big that you can't go anywhere.
And we're in control of it. Like we're the ones that draw
Yes,
it.
you drew it.
Yeah.
And it's also like, whoops, I drew it too big. So I actually think that shitty poem is actually pretty darn compelling.
Mhm.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Maybe I should write more poetry.
Maybe you should. I also want to give praise to your list of things that like that's quite the list of like I don't want to say off the wall because maybe that's not right.
I think
But
that
creative things, like that's quite the list of things you could do. Creating
Mhm.
your own piñata, breaking it open, never heard that. Dance party with the feet, painting, definitely never heard that. Um, pretty awesome.
they're things that we should be doing on a daily basis probably. I throw a tea party with a friend at least once a week, and I think that it's the greatest thing that I like do in my schedule. It's really fun.
Which connects to the idea of going to a coffee shop and going to or not a coffee shop, like a bookstore, the ones that have where you're able to just look at books that you don't want to buy and figure out why you look at them and then write. That makes me want to ride on a train. I love riding on trains and writing on trains. Trains are the best place to write ever.
I do miss
We took a train to California. It was like a 3-day trip. Got a
That's so.
supercar. It was amazing. I
I've never
loved
done
it.
a lot of like public transportation or like short term like Amtrak trains through like DC and New York and stuff. But I used to take the train to work every day, and I used to love reading and writing on the train. It was my favorite, especially because everyone's on their phones and I'm like writing about them.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's how we did Europe too. We got the inter country train pass, and just like the ride from Switzerland to Paris is freaking amazing. It's like awesome.
Magic.
Just awesome. Okay. Yeah, that's so cool. That's way more creative than what I came up with, but I'm not comparing.
Isn't that what you just did?
I know. I caught myself. I was trying to encourage myself. I wrote, there's minimum viable product, which is another kind of idea. So making something really small. So it's not like instead of like trying to write a novel, you just write a paragraph. Because then if the paragraph's bad, you can just throw it out. And it's more exciting that way. So like with your meal, when you want to be a better cook and you're going to cook something, you want to cook something small or like small portions. So that when it doesn't work out, you're like, okay. Versus like, oh, I just made this giant thing of soup that is not edible because it's way too salty or whatever, right? So I was thinking about that, and I asked, what can we do that would be fun to create, and how do we create it? And then I wrote, there's a disconnection that's coming up, a sense of a writing retreat, to slow down enough to see the seasons change, to embrace the eon, as it were, this big scope and sequence of your life, going hard and soft, allowing some of the time you need to throw up a camera and just hit record, studio time all over again. Which I remember I used to love scheduling studio time and just like seeing what happens. And I still love doing that, but I haven't done that where it's like, no, this is like, I got 3 hours of studio time. So that was remembering that I used to love to do that a lot more, and I haven't done that. Celebrate the little steps towards playing and singing each night, which I have been doing. Which I wanted to celebrate that playing and singing every night is a big step forward for creativity, and that writing a bit each morning, knowing it's going to take time to have fun along the way. Love the expression of going, oh right. And then I was just watching these mountaineers and how excited this one mountaineer was, and how eager he was to believe in his ability to summit, enjoy the view, and the challenge of one step after another. And that one of my friends said that he used to take a tech fast for the entire month of December, which was pretty amazing. And that definitely connects with remembering Roger and the things that he said. He said a lot of powerful things. So I'm gonna be taking some time to dig through old books of things, that try to find the things that I recorded that he wrote, and see what I find. I have a feeling I'm gonna find some weird things, like beside not what he said, but other things in my like stack of. My other celebration that I didn't write down is that I finished a Moleskine book in 7 days, which is like as a personal record. I was writing a shitload of notes and all kinds of like. I was over Thanksgiving break when I wasn't at work, so I was having a ball over Thanksgiving break. That was mine. I think disconnecting from tech and like doing like a writer's retreat, going into mourning friend's death as together, like all of that, I think is gonna be really fun and fruitful.
Yeah.
I like that you talk about the lack of technology, because I feel like that's been coming up like more and more and more in random things that I'm hearing all the time.
It's sticking out to me because I also, and I feel like when I'm on, I'm just getting more of that sense when I'm scrolling that this is not, my life is not here. This is not what God didn't put me here to scroll through Instagram.
I agree.
But I mean, it's interesting because I sometimes see inspirational things there, and it's
Some,
nice sometimes.
But you
But
might
yeah,
be missing inspirational things that are just like right there, you know, and not on social media, like an
yeah,
alpaca farm.
that's right.
yep.
Or the last I've been looking on Clubhouse. Like I'm like, oh, are there any interesting rooms on Clubhouse? And increasingly, no, there haven't been. So
Yeah, I was
time
scrolling through it today and it was like eyes crossed. I just closed it.
looking bleak on there.
Mhm.
Um, my notes: tea party and mountaineering. Really want to get up to the mountains.
Yes. Get in the mountains. I was just at Long's Peak over the weekend. It was great.
Yeah.
Was it windy at Long's Peak?
It was super windy. Once we got out of the trees, it was pretty hardcore. We were definitely like leaning into it a bit, but we were prepared, luckily. And it was so sunny. It was a really nice day, but it was like really aggressive.
I can only imagine.
I love winter hikes though. I'm so excited for winter hikes. It is so much fun. It's like a crazy world up there.
I love me some backcountry touring.
Yes.
Definitely got, it's a really interesting metaphor too, because you know you're reading the terrain all the time and you're route finding, and you're also not doing things that you know you have to be willing to not go where you thought you were going to go if you don't want to die in an avalanche.
Yeah, you have to be really adaptable and you have to
Yeah.
think like way further into the future than you're used to doing. Like, cause like a lot of dumb things can happen if you're not like really on it, which is like pretty exciting. I'm like the stakes of like being fully responsible for yourself, going outside, knowing that if you get hurt, you got to get yourself out of there somehow. It's like pretty awesome. I enjoy like how demanding that is and like how much it really like pushes you to see like if you can really be responsible for yourself. I don't know. I'm like, I think that's like a very cool lesson to learn and thing to like mess around with. Except you can't really mess around with it because you'll die. But it's awesome.
I also, that reminds me of Ame's, how I feel when you were saying to go deliver water to the people in Skid Row, and how Natalie Goldberg ends her book Wild Mind that I just finished with this idea from a meditation teacher that you meditate by yourself, but you meditate for everyone. And that writing is like that too. That it's something you do with yourself, but you're doing it for everyone. Um, and I just think there's something really interesting here around self-care and service to others, which reminds me of your story. I think that's really why your story got me emotional at the beginning of the top of the hour, Ame. That it's not one or the other.
You know, I really loved what Ame was saying at the beginning of this, and I meant to comment on the whole bit about like making the decision to go surfing and to take that day to go do that instead. And I just think that's like such a like powerful, like awesome decision that's like not always easy to make when you like hold yourself like responsible for taking care of everybody else all the time. I'm like, I was super glad to hear that's how your decision went and that you like did that for yourself because that's super important. And I loved it. The whole story was, yeah, like, whoa, crazy start to everything. I was going to say that before, but I'm glad you reminded me. Because yeah, like prioritizing joy is like not always easy for ourselves. And like going out there and just like doing it with friends is like, sometimes when you're done, you're like, wow, I don't know why I was like so apprehensive to go do that. But sometimes it's hard to like give yourself permission, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And but once you, I guess, and it's so strange to think of it as taking a leap.
Breaks after you do it, you're like,
But you are.
But you are. You're kind of breaking out of the normal way of like how we just do, you know? It's really interesting. I also, the two words prioritizing joy really stood out to me. And it is like taking a leap.
Which is strange in a way.
It is strange. It's strange that that's the cultural environment that we exist in,
Mm-hmm.
especially in this like good life hustle culture. Go, go, go. Come on, everybody.
Yeah.
Let's,
Yeah, hustle culture is draining.
which is why I mean, the idea of slowing down to really witness things change really feels really good and wholesome for me right now. I
I
also,
met a
go ahead, Annie.
I met a Zen Buddhist on Saturday when I was at that like conference thing that I told you, or like the little tea party salon thing. And he was telling me that they spent the entire winter doing all the work that they didn't have time to do. And the lady we're talking about, she's like, oh, like says like all these practical things. And then he like stops and he's like, oh no, we actually spent all of our time resting, reading, writing, and he was like, but that's the reason that we can do the hard work then in the summer, you know. And it was really cool because I don't know, I was really glad that like I was able to like kind of anticipate what he was gonna say in a way, and like be like, oh, it is really cool that like you can see all these connections, you know. And it's like the reason that they can work so hard is that they have this piece to face the challenges, you know. It's really cool.
That is really cool.
I've been trying to ask myself this week, just for personal reasons, like how would Buddha sell plants? And like because I've been getting really overwhelmed with my plant shop.
Isn't that interesting? I would imagine Buddha would use loving kindness and sympathetic joy and compassion and equanimity, which are the 4 immeasurable states, because they have immeasurable benefit. Immeasurable states. Sympathetic joy is feeling another person's joy as your own. Compassion is feeling another person's pain as your own. And equanimity is being like okay with things as they come. Loving kindness is self-explanatory. Pretty cool list.
Very cool list.
I've been deep into equanimity practice for about 5 years, since I made the conscious decision, and it's been amazing in my relationships, really, generally. So I just generally, I don't like when people get upset about things they shouldn't be upset about, and I don't like when people bitch about things. And then I realized, but I'm like bitching about other people's bitching. So I'm like, no bitching. Someone's like, well, look who's talking, you bitcher. And I'm like, oh shit, touche. So what's the way out of that? And I'm like, well, maybe it's not my job to like tell people how they should be. Ego check. Maybe I should actually like just like not try to fix people. That might be helpful too. And maybe I shouldn't like, when people are upset, maybe it's okay they're upset. Maybe I don't need to be like upset bad. Happy, good. Maybe when they're happy, I don't need to be, I can be like, whoa, maybe it's not so good that you're happy. Maybe you don't want to be that happy. So I started just noticing when I had these, and for me it was more aversion. I noticed when I was like, oh, I don't like that. I don't like that. And I'll be like, well, wait a minute. Just see it it's okay. Just see it what it is.
Yeah, I've been trying to kind of like go into those things that, when they give you that weird knot in your chest, you're like, you shouldn't be doing that. I've been trying to like ask people questions to like open my mind, and that's been helping a lot.
And then what you notice is that you're like, then I have that reaction with myself. So then I'm like, oh, well, you shouldn't be doing that. And I'm like, no. It's okay to have that reaction. So I have equanimity to my own I have equanimity towards you. I have equanimity toward my own reaction. I just see it as like not good or bad. Just notice it. And it's amazing. It creates just a tiny bit of space to be like, oh, okay, well, I can still like I can still love on you, even though you're upset. And not even, sorry, Ame, you go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry.
It's just not even though, it's just like, there's not the judgment there anymore. And it creates just a little bit of space. And then there's not judgment of me either when I'm not there. And I'm just like, okay. And then it opens the door for like, to be more loving and present. I'm a big fan of equanimity, and I think that's like with that and being honestly with a small business, I think is the other thing. Because I think it's really hard. It's really easy to be overwhelmed by things.
Mm.
I think you just have to refocus on what it is why you did it and what you like about it.
Yeah, I put like read back on all my notes from when I first started the shop in like a second ago in my list, because I'm like, I feel like things like that, like just going back to the beginning, back to the roots of like why I
The
have
roots.
this creative project, my roots.
Yeah, and then changing it and like knowing that, the goals might be askew. Maybe you don't want to like grow a giant plant business. Maybe you just want to share them with your friends. Maybe there's something
No,
else in it.
I'm gonna start a girls volunteer group, I think, with a bunch of young women, and I think that that's where this is headed, and it's gonna be like more of a nonprofit. But who knows? We'll see.
Who
Open
knows?
to
Maybe this
change,
is
and
giving
that's what
you some like
matters.
community organizing experience. Ame, you had a question or a comment on the equanimity practice. I saw you react.
Oh, no, I was reacting to something that you were saying. It made me think about maybe the reason why there's that tendency to want to regulate, is take Clubhouse, for example. Any given day you go on Clubhouse, you're going to have tons of rooms of coaches coaching this, coaching that. And I sometimes feel like there's a tendency sometimes to suddenly think, well, there might be something wrong with me that I need fixed. And then that thing that actually is not needing fixing is rest, is contemplation, is conversation
Yeah.
with like-minded. Not saying you have to be just around only people like you. I'm talking about just bouncing.
Like-hearted people.
Yeah, and being wrong. It's okay.
Yeah.
And being wrong and exploring that and what happens when you touch the fire. You know what I mean? I don't know. I just kind of feel like that plays into this too, and that's why it's everywhere. Somebody's there to fix your problem.
Well, there's money in it too. When I got marketing consultations of marketing for the Wisdom Workshop, it was like you have to pick at people's insecurities and their problems. That should be the opening of all your copy. Are you feeling stuck? Are you unhappy with where you are?
Yeah, you're right.
Do you need, that's like marketing 101. Hit the pain point, aggravate the pain point, then offer your balm.
Yes.
And I'm like, whoa, that's not really my style. And they're like, how's your sales going? And I'm like, man, not so good. And they're like, that's why.
Oh my God, I'm trying to find some notes that we got. There was one good Clubhouse. Oh my God, where is it? I have too many notes. Sorry, if somebody needs to talk while I find it.
I'm curious, we haven't heard from Dana post free write. And you've been looking very intently at something on your screen for a while.
I'm dying to find this quote I've read, and
I see.
I can't find it. But I've been also very listening, but I did not write that prompt. I wrote the prompt of what is it? Where am I encouraging myself where it matters?
Ooh, good.
And because I was just like, oh, that speaks to me. I was like, where you just need to take a quick break because I want to write on that. But no, it's it was really good. And when you start on this roll, there's a lot of stuff that comes up,
Yes.
And for the one thing that you screwed up, that you're beating yourself up over during the week, I've missed like a billion other things, while I'm bitching about something. It's like, oh, but you've been doing this, like, I don't know, this kind of incredible stuff on the side. So who cares that you like, oh, great, like you didn't have the answer to that, or you didn't answer the phone, or like you're kind of mean to that one person or whatever. And like, that's going to color your entire day, but you're going to not like celebrate the fact that you are crushing it in a lot of different aspects. So I don't know, it was pretty cool.
So cool. It reminds me when I was up for promotion at CSU, we get voted on. There's like 24 of our peers, and you get to see like the votes. I got 22 people voted I should get the promotion. One person abstained, and one person said I shouldn't. Guess what I thought?
Oh, that one guy doesn't like.
Who's the one?
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
It is crazy.
Man, I like that.
That.
Wait, what was that?
But I understand.
Yeah, right? I remember being like, I'm noticing this is weird. And who the fuck? Yeah. No, I love that, Dana. And I put it in the chat. I love the fact that you noticed that prompt, like you were like, ooh, I like that. Stop the presses. Can we just not talk anymore? I want to write on that.
That is exactly what happened. I was like, wait, what do you mean we're going to a different prompt?
Yeah, maybe that's why the prompt didn't work. Because I had already like stumbled on one that was better than the one that I had planned.
No, I mean, I think it's good. And I mean, I think the other thing that in my free writing, just then noticing those tiny little things of, well, you did a good job, like not taking the prompt that Sean was like, you need to write this prompt. And I'm like, oh, thank you. And no, like, that's okay. And I think that's significant for me because I'm such a rule follower that I would be like, I'm so conflicted. Like, I guess I'll just write on, what fun we should be having this week, even though I don't want to be writing on it. And I know that sounds very trivial, but I think those are the little things that I need to start celebrating more is, doing the things that speak to you, even if that's not the assignment.
Mm-hmm.
I freaking love that.
That thank you was the best thing I've heard all day. That was
yeah, thank you.
so good. Thank you. But I'm going to do something.
I'm going to use that. Thank you. But I'm going to go like.
Yeah. I also, Dana, what you said earlier, like the beginning of all this, kind of helped me like get to where I was going with my friend stuff when you talked about like having that day of being snowed in with your friends and having no control of what was happening and sort of just being like at the whim of the place that you're stuck at for reasons out of your control. And I think one of the aspects that like is appealing to me of trying to do creative things with my friends is the fact that like when I'm fully in charge of my time, like I cut out time to write, if it doesn't go a certain way or something, I'm like really hard on myself because I'm like, this is fully my responsibility. I'm the only one. But I feel like when you're with a group or you're with your friends, you're like, I'm just like going with the flow. I'm at the whim of whatever these people decide to do. Like if I do something cool. If I don't, I probably was doing something else cool. And I think it removes a lot of that like jump that I have for how I am managing my time because I'm like, well, I'm not in control right now.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I really like that you brought that up. I think that was very, very good for me to hear.
And in turn, your suggestion about doing that with friends totally was good for me to hear. Because
I've also been distracted about pinatas too since Annie brought that up.
I'm like, I want to make some paper mache. We have flour in this house and newspaper.
Yeah. I've been sitting here thinking about like, how can I make a Christmas tree pinata? And then I don't know if you guys like when you were little doing crafts of making like the squares of tissue paper on the end of a pencil and like dipping it in glue and then putting on. I'm like, that sounds like the best meditation I have. Yeah. So I'm probably going to be making a pinata here in the near future.
I love it.
I'm really excited to just like fill it with things that I like. Like it doesn't even have to be candy, just like even if it like what a pack of fertilizer like for me. Who knew that I wanted that?
So good.
I feel like the garden themed growing the garden is so good.
Mm-hmm.
So good. Well,
I want to. Can I comment really fast on what Dana said? I like, I like that you said thanks, but no thanks in itself, because I think like we get so much input from all of these different people, but it only really matters if like you're filtering it, and like you're deciding like what you're going to take from all of the things that we're hearing. So I think that like just like reminded me to like actually, as much as we hear these great things, like reflect tomorrow on like the really important parts that impacted me about this workshop. So I wanted to thank you for that.
And I know we're at time, and if um, I would encourage us to just lean in. To try to challenge ourselves to do something that's still fun and also quote unquote productive. So we're kind of leaning into work and play, how to make our play more work like so we actually take it more seriously. We're taking our play more seriously, and we're taking our work more playfully. It's kind of like that idea that I want us to play with this week. Yeah.
So that was the intent, because for a hot second I was thinking I really did not understand the assignment. But with that said, I understood the assignment.
Yay! Because it was pretty unclear.
So that's what I did.
Whoa!
That's beautiful.
And those are just a bunch of, I said, you know what? I'm just going to allow myself to be that cringy and just write. And it's pretty cringy, but
I like it.
doing all of this stuff, it was allowing me to process some things, because as the words are going around, they're going around this amoeba shaped stuff. Yes, it is. Okay, give me 1 second. As I was going around and around and around and around and around and around, as I started to not even be able to recognize the words anymore, it made me think, okay, that's good. That means I'm moving past that, and I'm going into something a little more where my brain is becoming a little more agile and more accepting. And so the words on the outside start to say things like hope, hopeful. There's still hope. One of them says, I can't even read that anymore. One of them says, you know what I mean? It goes from thoughts of and things where the middle section, the more I look at it now, the middle section is starting somewhere in elementary school, where I was starting to be told to stop showing off when I would draw. Stop showing off and let somebody else move into that space, which then stunts. And I have no periods. This is just continues and continues and continues. And that voice I describe as a screech. And as it continues to move through here, I start moving on the periphery, and it starts to talk more about, time, and numbers are just counting up and restarting again and again and again, and then battling these urges to give up and accept, that the road is not ending, but rather is moving into another space, and that I don't have to settle into something that's like, it just kind of started going all over the place. But that was my destination. I just didn't get enough time to write in there. So I think it worked out for me.
I'll say I like the screech too.
Yeah.
I mean, I like that as a name for what it is, for what that kind of, and how dare someone say, make room for someone else, get out of here. And because you internalize that.
Absolutely.
It reminded me, I started a potential series, a maze series. It's just like, I remember I used to like to make mazes, and I thought about like putting like a series of like where I am and where I'd like to go, and then just have like a maze. Like, that was interesting.
I love that.
It kind of reminded me of yours. And this was my like random, like, this was fun. Okay. Do we have a good sense of like we're gonna play? I always just feel way better now than I did 90 minutes ago. So
Same.
thank you all for that.
Yes,
Thank
you. Agile and accepting. I love those two words together, Ame. It's a good one. It's a good ones to end on. And you said hopeful. Oh, right. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna see about maybe setting up some times to do some friend creative hangs.
That'll be nice.
Yes.
Maybe on some weekends, or I'm gonna need to look at how I could do that. It might be in the mornings, or if you wanna play, let me know what times you're not working, and maybe we can do some playful co-creation somehow.
Make a pinata.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something. I think if we just like hang out and do whatever it is we're gonna do, maybe you could make a pinata and I could like shoot the rest of the manuscript video that I have like 2 other videos that I've been waiting to make forever.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. I'll see you. I'll see you all next week. Thanks for being
Yes.
awesome. That was
Thanks,
super
guys.
helpful. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.